February, part of 5th Dakikaf, 2003, United Nations Security Council, New York City. The United States Secretary of State Colin Powell stands before the world. He holds up a small glass vial. Inside, a white powder. He speaks for 76 minutes. He presents satellite images, audio recordings, intelligence reports. He tells the world that Saddam Hussein has weapons capable of ending millions of lives. He tells the world that the evidence is solid, that the sources are credible, that there is no doubt. The room is silent. The world is watching. 18 months later, after the most expensive military operation in modern history, the official investigation concluded its search. The weapons were not there. Not a single one. Not anywhere in Iraq. Colin Powell would later call that presentation a blot on his record. The most powerful intelligence agencies on Earth had presented the world with evidence. That did not exist. And the question that has never been fully answered is whether they knew. Stay with us. Because what happened in Iraq between 2003 and 2011 was not simply a mistake. It was a series of decisions made by people who understood exactly what they were doing. To understand what happened in Iraq, you first need to understand who Saddam Hussein actually was. Not the monster the world was shown, the leader. Saddam Hussein came to power in 1979. He ruled Iraq for 24 years. During that time, Iraq had the highest literacy rate in the Arab world. Free education, free healthcare, a growing middle class. Women held government positions, universities were filled. Iraq was being built into something. This is not a defense of Saddam Hussein. He was responsible for extraordinary acts of violence against his own people. The gas attack on Halabja in 1988 was a documented atrocity. Thousands of Kurdish civilians lost their lives. This happened. It was real. But here's the detail that changes the context entirely. When that gas attack happened in 1988, the United States government knew about it. Documented intelligence confirmed it within days. And the United States government did nothing. Because in 1988, Saddam Hussein was a strategic ally against Iran. The same man the world would later be told was an immediate threat to civilization, was being supported by the same governments that later removed him. Stay with us. Because what happened next, nobody predicted. Here's what the official narrative about Iraq never emphasized. Iraq sits on the second largest proven oil reserves on the planet, 115 billion barrels. Under Saddam Hussein, those reserves were nationalized. The Iraqi government controlled the oil. The revenue from that oil went to the Iraqi state, to the schools, the hospitals, the infrastructure, not to foreign companies. This had been the case since 1972 when Saddam nationalized the Iraq Petroleum Company, removing foreign control over Iraqi oil entirely. Western energy companies had been locked out for 30 years. Now consider what happened after 2003, after the invasion, after Saddam Hussein was removed from power, after the government that had nationalized the oil was dismantled. Within 5 years, the major oil contracts in Iraq had been awarded to BP, to Shell, to ExxonMobil, to Total. The same companies that had been locked out for 30 years, they were back, with contracts, with access, with revenue. The oil that had belonged to the Iraqi people for 3 decades was now generating profit for shareholders in London and New York and Paris. Ask yourself, was this a coincidence? Now let us examine what the intelligence agencies actually knew. In 2002, the United States government commissioned a national intelligence estimate on Iraq's weapons programs. The estimate was produced by 16 separate intelligence agencies. It concluded that Iraq probably had chemical and biological weapons. But buried inside that same document were significant dissenting opinions. The State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research concluded that the evidence was not sufficient to support the claim. The Department of Energy's intelligence arm expressed serious doubts about the nuclear program claims. These dissenting opinions existed. They were documented. They were in the same report that was presented to Congress. But when the public case for the invasion was made, those dissenting opinions were not emphasized. They were set aside. The conclusions that supported the decision that had already been made were the conclusions that were presented to the world. And Colin Powell, a man of significant personal integrity, stood before the United Nations and presented that case. He later said he had been given information that he was assured was credible. He later said he would carry the weight of that presentation for the rest of his life. He passed from this world in 2021. The people who provided him with that information have never faced formal accountability, not once. Saddam Hussein was captured on December 13th, 2003, found in an underground hiding place near his hometown of Tikrit, disheveled, exhausted, alone, the most feared leader in the Middle East, hiding in a hole in the ground. He was tried by the Iraqi Special Tribunal, a court established under the authority of the Coalition Provisional Authority, the governing body set up by the United States after the invasion. The trial focused on a single incident, the Vial massacre of 1982, in which Saddam had ordered the execution of civilians following an assassination attempt. He was found guilty. He was sentenced to be executed by hanging. On December 30th, 2006, Saddam Hussein was executed. The execution was filmed on a mobile phone. The footage was leaked. The world watched. And here's what that footage showed. In his final moments, Saddam Hussein was composed. He recited a prayer. He did not beg. He did not break. And the men around him, and some of them wearing masks, taunted him, called out the name of his political enemy as the rope was placed around his neck. The chief judge of the Iraqi Supreme Court later stated that the execution had been carried out improperly, that proper legal procedures had not been followed, that the manner of the execution had violated the standards of the court. His statement was noted and ignored. Here's what happened to Iraq after Saddam Hussein was removed. The country that had the highest literacy rate in the Arab world saw its education system collapse. The free healthcare system dismantled. The infrastructure destroyed and never fully rebuilt. More than 100,000 Iraqi civilians lost their lives in the conflict that followed the invasion. Some estimates place the figure significantly higher. The sectarian divisions that Saddam's government had suppressed with force exploded into open conflict. A power vacuum opened. Into that vacuum, new forces emerged. Forces that would destabilize not just Iraq, but the entire region for decades. The weapons of mass destruction that justified the invasion were never found. The investigation led by David Kay, appointed by the United States government itself, concluded in 2004 that Iraq had no active weapons programs at the time of the invasion. No stockpiles, no active production, no immediate threat. Kay stated publicly that the intelligence community had been wrong, that the failure was fundamental, and that the decision to go to war had been based on intelligence that did not reflect reality. Saddam Hussein rests in his hometown of Auja near Tikrit, beside the graves of his sons. Iraq today is a different country from the one that existed before 2003. Different in ways that its people are still living with, every single day. The companies that now hold Iraqi oil contracts continue to operate, continue to generate revenue. The people who made the decisions that led to the invasion wrote books, gave speeches, collected fees. And the question that the official version never fully answered remains unanswered today. If the intelligence was wrong, who decided to present it as certain? If the dissenting opinions existed, who decided to set them aside? If the weapons were never there, who benefited most from the world believing that they were? We do not know. What we know is this: 115 billion barrels of oil, 30 years of locked-out energy companies, a decision made on evidence that turned out not to exist, and a region that has never fully recovered. What do you think the real reason was for what happened in Iraq? Leave your answer below. Because the official version was built on a vial of white powder that represented something that was never actually there.